The applause was still fading, the red on-air light glowing with its usual silent authority, when Lorraine Kelly leaned forward. She adjusted the cuffs of her blouse, her signature smile in place, but her eyes held a sharpness that didn't match the morning hour. Across from her sat Jason Momoa. He took up space, as he always did, draping one arm over the back of the guest chair, his legs splayed in a posture of relaxed dominance. He looked every inch the movie star, scarves layered over a tattered linen shirt, heavy rings on his fingers, that famous, easy grin already deployed for the cameras. He was ready for the fluff. He was ready for the clips, the laughs, the questions about his workout routine or his motorcycles. He was not ready for what Lorraine said before the audience had even finished settling into their seats. "Jason, it's lovely to have you," Lorraine began, her Scottish lilt soft, almost disarming. "But I have to admit, reading through the press pack your team sent over, I found myself a bit confused. It paints a picture of a man deeply connected to the earth, a humble artist. Yet the reports coming from your last three sets suggest a man who has become impossible to work with. Is the gentle giant persona just good marketing at this point?" The studio air seemed to vanish. Jason's grin didn't drop immediately. It froze. It became a mask. He blinked, shifting his weight slightly as if the chair had suddenly become uncomfortable. He let out a low, rumbling chuckle, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Wow," Jason said, his voice deep, gravelly, trying to keep the vibe light. "We're starting with the heavy stuff before I've even had my coffee. Huh, Lorraine? I don't know who you've been talking to. Sets are high-pressure environments. Passion gets mistaken for difficulty. You know how it is." "I do know how it is," Lorraine countered, not missing a beat. She didn't laugh with him. She didn't offer him the bridge of a shared joke. "But passion is usually about the work. The stories I'm referring to are about lateness, about disregarding schedules that hundreds of crew members rely on to see their families. That doesn't sound like passion, Jason. It sounds like entitlement." Jason pulled his arm back from the chair. The relaxed sprawl vanished. He leaned in, his elbows resting on his knees, his physical size suddenly becoming a factor in the dynamic. He towered even when seated, and he used that now. He looked at her with a heavy-lidded expression of boredom, a silent signal that she was beneath this conversation. "Look," Jason said, a slight edge of irritation creeping into his tone. "I'm an artist. I work on feeling. I work on the moment. If I'm not feeling the scene, I'm not going to fake it just so the lunch break happens at noon on the dot. That's not how I operate. And frankly, the fans don't care about the schedule. They care about what's on the screen." "Do they?" Lorraine asked. She clasped her hands in her lap, her posture perfect, her stillness a weapon against his movement. "Because the critics have been saying that what's on the screen lately feels tired. They say you're playing Jason Momoa in every film, that the craft has been replaced by the brand. Do you worry that by ignoring the discipline of your job, you're actually damaging the product you claim to protect?" Jason scoffed, looking away from her, scanning the studio audience as if seeking an ally. He found only silence. The audience was paralyzed, caught between the thrill of seeing a superstar and the awkwardness of witnessing a dismantling. "Tired?" Jason repeated, turning back to her. He smirked, shaking his head. "Lorraine, my movies make billions. With a B. People love the brand. They love the energy. I bring joy to people. Why are we sitting here picking apart my process? I thought we were here to talk about the new project, not dissect my career choices like I'm on trial." "We are talking about the new project," Lorraine said smoothly, "because the new project is marketed as your most personal work yet, a return to roots. But if the process behind it was chaotic and dismissive of the people helping you make it, how can the result be authentic? You talk a lot about Ohana, about family, about tribe. Do the crew members you kept waiting for 4 hours not count as your tribe?" Jason's jaw tightened. A small muscle feathered beneath his beard. The charm was evaporating, replaced by a simmering annoyance that he made no effort to hide. He was used to interviewers who nodded. He was used to people who were grateful just to be in his orbit. Lorraine was treating him like an unruly schoolboy, and the indignity of it was clearly stinging him. "You're fixating on gossip," Jason said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming colder. You're reading tabloids and bringing them onto a morning show. It's beneath you, Lorraine, seriously. I treat my people with love, always. But I'm the one with the face on the poster. I carry the weight. If I need a moment to get my head right, I take it. That's not entitlement. That's survival in this industry. So the face on the poster justifies the behavior, Lorraine pressed. She was relentless. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her questions were precise, surgical strikes that stripped away his defenses. Is that what you tell the young actors who look up to you? That once you reach a certain level of fame, basic professional courtesy becomes optional? Jason let out a sharp exhale, rolling his eyes toward the ceiling. I didn't say that. You're twisting my words. I'm saying the pressure is different. You sit here in a studio, you read a teleprompter. It's structured. It's safe, out there on location. When you're freezing, when the light is losing, when the money is burning, it's war. You do what you have to do. I've worked in this industry for 40 years, Jason, Lorraine said, her voice dropping to a steely register. I know the difference between pressure and arrogance. And I know that the greatest stars I've interviewed manage to handle that pressure without making the people below them feel small. You seem to believe your talent buys you a pass. I don't need a pass, Jason snapped. It was the first time his control slipped. He pointed a finger at her, a gesture of aggression that looked jarring on the bright, floral set. I earned my spot. I clawed my way up from nothing. I don't need to justify how I work to you or anyone else. If people don't like it, they don't have to hire me. But guess what? The phone keeps ringing. It does, Lorraine agreed, unperturbed by the finger pointed in her direction. But for how long? Hollywood is littered with people who thought the phone would never stop ringing until the day it did. But let's move on, since you feel your work ethic is beyond reproach. She shuffled her notes, a deliberate pause that let his irritation fester. Jason crossed his arms, leaning back again. But this time it wasn't relaxed. It was a barrier. He was closing himself off, his body language shouting that he was done with her. But he was trapped on live television. And Lorraine held the keys. Let's talk about your activism, Lorraine said, shifting gears but maintaining the intensity. You are very vocal about the environment, the oceans particularly. You've made it a central part of your public identity. You scold corporations. You call out politicians. It's very passionate. It's necessary, Jason muttered, still defensive. Someone has to speak up. The planet is dying. Agreed, Lorraine said, which is why many people find your lifestyle confusing. In the last month alone, your flight logs show 6 private jet trips. You have a massive collection of vintage motorcycles and cars, none of which are electric. You live in a sprawling estate with a carbon footprint the size of a small town. Do you not see a disconnect between the man preaching about saving the ocean and the man burning jet fuel to get to a premiere? Jason stared at her. For a moment, he looked genuinely stunned. This was the third rail. Nobody attacked the activism. That was the shield. That was the thing that made him good. To have it questioned so bluntly, with facts attached, seemed to short-circuit his usual deflections. That is ridiculous, Jason stammered, slightly, grasping for footing. I'm bringing awareness. I'm using my platform to reach millions. The impact of my voice outweighs the logistics of my travel. I can't fly commercial, Lorraine. I'd get mobbed. It's a security issue. Is it? Lorraine asked, eyebrows raised. Princess Anne flies commercial. Prime ministers fly commercial. Are you saying you are more famous or perhaps more important than royalty? I'm saying it's different. Jason's voice rose, resonating in the quiet studio. I'm an actor. The frenzy is different. And frankly, this is what I mean. You're picking at details to try and discredit the message. Who cares how I get there if the message saves the reef? It's petty. It's small-minded. It's accountability, Lorraine corrected him gently. And it's not petty to ask if the messenger believes in the message enough to live it. When you lecture working-class families about their plastic usage, while you live a life of excessive consumption, it doesn't come across as leadership, Jason. It comes across as hypocrisy. Does that word sting? Jason looked furious. His face, usually so open and expressive, was tight with suppressed rage. He uncrossed his arms and gripped the armrests of the chair, his knuckles white. You know what stings? Jason spat out. Sitting here listening to someone who sits in an air-conditioned studio all day judge how I live my life. I'm out there actually doing things. I'm on the ground. I'm funding research. What are you doing, Lorraine, besides trying to tear people down for ratings? I'm asking the questions the audience is thinking, Lorraine said, her voice remaining eerily calm against his rising volume. And your reaction is telling. You're angry, Jason, deeply angry. Not because I'm lying, but because I'm refusing to applaud. You're used to the applause, aren't you? You've surrounded yourself with it so completely that a valid question feels like an attack. It is an attack, Jason argued, leaning forward, invading her personal space with his intensity. You didn't bring me here to talk. You brought me here to ambush me. You want a soundbite. You want Jason Momoa snaps. Well, congratulations. You're getting close. But it doesn't make you a journalist. It makes you a troll. The audience gasped softly. Calling Lorraine Kelly a troll on her own show was a line nobody crossed. The tension in the room was physical, a heavy, suffocating blanket. The producers in the booth were likely screaming into their headsets, but Lorraine didn't flinch. She didn't look at the producers. She looked only at him. I am giving you an opportunity to explain, Lorraine said, her voice dropping to a whisper that forced everyone to lean in. I'm giving you a chance to reconcile the image with the man. But instead of answering, you're lashing out. You're attacking me. You're attacking the format. It's a defense mechanism, Jason. What are you protecting? What is underneath all this bravado that you're so terrified to let us see? Jason fell silent. The question hung in the air. For a second, the arrogance flickered. He looked tired. He looked trapped. He opened his mouth to speak, perhaps to pivot back to a prepared line, but Lorraine didn't let him off the hook. She pressed the advantage. Because I look at you, and she continued, and I don't see the happy, free-spirited wanderer you play on Instagram. I see a man who is incredibly tense, a man who feels he is above questioning. And I have to wonder, is it lonely? Being the only person in the room who is allowed to be right? Jason laughed, but it was a harsh, ugly sound. Lonely, I have everything. I have the world at my feet. Don't project your little theories onto me. You don't know me. I know what you show us, Lorraine said. And right now, you're showing us a man who cannot handle a challenge. You're showing us that the cool guy act is remarkably fragile. One push, one real question, and it crumbles into hostility. I'm not hostile, shish, Jason grit out through clenched teeth. I'm annoyed. There's a difference. I came here to be respectful. You're the one who turned this into an interrogation. I turned it into a conversation about substance, Lorraine said. Let's try one more time. A specific question. No deflection. You publicly shamed a young journalist last month for asking about your box office numbers. You mocked him. You posted his photo to your millions of followers, and you unleashed a wave of harassment against him. He was 22 years old. He was doing his job. You punched down Jason with the full weight of your fame. Do you regret that? This was the corner. This was the specific incident he couldn't wave away with talk of art or saving the planet. It was a specific act of cruelty that had been glossed over by the U.S. media but had lingered in the U.K. press. Jason's eyes darted away. He licked his lips. He looked for the exit, not physically, but conversationally. He wanted out. The kid was rude, Jason muttered, looking at his boots. He came at me with an agenda. I defended myself. He asked if you were disappointed in the opening weekend figures, Lorraine corrected him. That is a standard industry question. It wasn't rude. It was factual. And in response, you destroyed his week. You sent a mob after him. Is that what a hero does? Is that what a king does? Or is that what a bully does? The word bully landed like a physical blow. Jason's head snapped up. His eyes were blazing. The charismatic movie star was gone entirely. In his place was a man who looked dangerous. Not in a Vassalmoneda way, but in the way a storm is dangerous. Unpredictable and overpowering. Watch your mouth, Jason said, his voice low, a warning growl. You don't get to call me that. You don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like to have people coming at you 24/7, trying to find a chink in the armor. I protected myself. I set a boundary. If he couldn't handle the heat, he shouldn't have stepped into the kitchen. He was 22, Lorraine repeated, her voice sad now, stripped of the earlier sharpness. He was a child compared to you, and you crushed him because he bruised your ego. That is the truth of it, isn't it? It wasn't about privacy. It wasn't about boundaries. It was about vanity. You couldn't stand being reminded that you aren't invincible. Jason stood up. It wasn't a slow rise. He surged out of the chair, his height suddenly overwhelming the small set. The audience flinched, a collective recoil. He stood there, chest heaving slightly, looking down at Lorraine, who remained seated, looking up at him with an expression of calm disappointment. "I'm done," Jason said. His voice wasn't shouting, but it carried to the back of the room without a microphone. "I'm not sitting here for this. You want to paint me as the bad guy? Fine, paint me as the bad guy. I don't care. But I'm not going to sit here and let you lecture me on morality when you're just trying to get a viral clip." "I think you're doing a fine job of creating the clip yourself," Lorraine said, her neck craned back to meet his gaze. She didn't stand, she didn't retreat. "Leaving now only confirms everything we've just discussed, Jason. It confirms that you can only exist in a room where you control the narrative. The moment you lose control, you run." Jason sneered. It was an ugly expression, twisting his handsome features into something unrecognizable. He reached up and grabbed the clip-on microphone from his lapel. He didn't unclasp it gently. He yanked it. The sound of the plastic tearing against fabric popped loudly through the studio speakers. "Call it running," Jason said, tossing the microphone onto the small glass table between them. It skidded and fell to the floor with a hollow clatter. "I call it knowing my worth. And this?" He gestured vaguely at her, at the set, at the audience. "This isn't worth my time." He turned on his heel. His heavy boots thudded against the studio floor as he walked toward the wings. He didn't look at the audience. He didn't wave. He marched with a rigid, furious energy, his scarves trailing behind him like the cape of a fallen king. The camera held the shot. It didn't cut away. It watched him walk into the shadows of the backstage area. It watched a producer scurry out of his way. It watched the darkness swallow him. Then slowly the camera panned back to Lorraine. She was alone in the frame. The empty chair beside her sat slightly askew, a testament to the violence of his departure. The microphone lay on the floor at her feet. The silence in the studio was absolute. No one coughed. No one shifted. It was the silence of shock. Lorraine took a breath. It was a long, slow inhale. She smoothed the fabric of her skirt. She looked down at her notes, then closed the folder. When she looked up at the camera, her face was not triumphant. It wasn't smug. It was solemn. "Well," Lorraine said, her voice quiet but steady, "that was unfortunate." She paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. She didn't apologize to him. She didn't make a joke to lighten the mood. She treated the event with the gravity it demanded. "We invite guests here to share their stories," she continued, looking directly into the lens, "to celebrate their work. But we also invite them here to answer for their choices. Fame is a privilege, not a shield. And when that privilege is used to silence others or to avoid accountability, I believe it is our job to ask why." She glanced at the empty chair one last time, a look of pity in her eyes. "It seems today we got an answer," she said, even if it wasn't the one Jason wanted to give. Lorraine adjusted her posture, signaling the end of the segment. "We'll be right back," she said. The screen faded to black, but the image of the empty chair remained burned into the minds of everyone watching. The interview was over, but the dismantling of Jason Momoa had only just begun. The silence he left behind was louder than anything he could have shouted.